Power Zone with Kwena Moabelo. Stay connected with the latest news across your world. Power 98.7. Now we're talking.
The conversation continues right here on Power FM 98.7. Remember, you can join the conversation via Twitter at PowerFM 987. The hashtag is Power Zone. Listening to us in the East Rand, in Ekurhuleni 107.2, Vereeniging 104.4, Johannesburg South and the West Rand 103.6, Pretoria and Johannesburg. We are on 98.7. Remember, you can also catch us via the DSTV audio bouquet on channel 889. Otherwise, we are on the World Wide Web as www.powerfm.co.za. We continue now. Welcome on the line, President of Awakened Minds and Pan-Africanist writer Lunga Tlou, to talk to us about the land bank. Do we need the land bank? Robert Sobukwe wrote, "We take our stand on the principle that Africa is one and desires to be one, and nobody, I repeat, has the right to balkanize our land." Good morning, Lunga.
Morning, Kwena. Morning to your listeners. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for talking to us. Just on that, we're talking about issues of the land bank, and post-apartheid South Africa turned about 23 years this year. Amidst all the excitement of Freedom Day celebrations, there has been a lot of issues that have been raised by the people. And interestingly, you say that the issue of land seems to be more prominent now. It has been there, people have been talking about it, but it looks like now more than ever, people are calling for the land.
Yes, indeed. The issue itself is propagated mostly by the internet, in that because of the connectivity that we have, the voice seems to be much more louder because now it's no longer separated. It seems to be now united, coming from all different circles of society within South Africa.
And what would you say is the reason why suddenly we are more open-minded, or rather that people are talking more openly about the issue of the land? I would say it's necessitated by the circumstances that we found ourselves in. I mean, as a citizen, as you stated yourself, celebrating 23 years of freedom, in itself, there's been a huge gap whereby I'd say much of the masses of the country were waiting to see what the 1994 project was going to yield. So after 23 years, the case are much more visible to the people, and it's mostly the youth who themselves are saying that we've been waiting all this time to see positive yields for us as the previously disadvantaged races within the country. But now, since that is not coming along, then these are the questions that then the youth is asking to say, ever since we've been waiting, nothing's been happening. So what is it that is actually necessitating the problems that we're facing? And at the center of most of them is the issue of land ownership, in that it's so prevalent that much of the black masses within the country themselves, land is something that we do not have. So our landlessness as a people is something that we are then confronted with on a daily basis. Hence now the larger voice in terms of the land question, wherever you go, it's the land question. Have we woken up too late to talk about the land issue? Should we have started talking about this in 1994?
Indeed, Kwena. I mean, the land issue in itself is as old as when, as a country, we were being colonized. So many of the wars that were being fought within the country were after the people saying no to our land being taken. So it did get taken through violence and conquest over the years. So 1994 in itself presented us an opportunity whereby we could have, I would say, legally and democratically, having had started the conversation about land, but being as it may be, we were not there, so we do not know the circumstances that might have led to us not having the conversation back then. But understanding the frenzy that had gripped the country when it comes to freedom, being born in a new country, new nation, new South Africa, change of president, change of color,
country flag, new national anthem, you can understand that the priorities were not at that present moment focused on the greater. It was a matter of, okay, now we just gained power. What then do we do with this power? So I agree with you when you say the conversation itself came a bit too late, because the opportunity, or rather the bigger opportunity, was there presented to us in 1994, whereby we could have offered our country what we term as perpetual freedom, because now we are confronted with these situations that are all something we've bequeathed from 1994.
Do you feel that it's an ANC problem? Did the ANC drop the ball along the line in terms of the land?
To us, the sense is that largely the ANC played a big role, simply because they were the key negotiators. We question the negotiation itself, in that we do not approve of the negotiations themselves, and that we do not believe that as someone who is fighting for freedom, you do not negotiate your freedom, you go and take it. So we say largely the fault is by the ANC, in that since they were the elected leaders, or de facto leaders of the Black Nation, as it were, in 1994, they put themselves in a position whereby they represented us. So therefore, largely it is their fault. But also then, the question also goes back to the population itself, in that post-1994, immediately after elections were won and land was not being given back, why then, why the question is not asked to say, but all these years we've been fighting for land to return. Why is it that now we are in power, we are not seeing this? So the conversations were supposed to be there. So largely the blame sits at the footstool of the ANC themselves, and then the populace itself, by allowing that project to continue and leave it untainted and believe in whatever promises that they were being told. So that's where the problem lies, Kwena.
80% of the country's land is still owned and controlled by a minority, and that has been going on for over 350 years. It comes as no surprise, as many of the people who are complaining about the land are black, isn't it?
Yes, indeed.
You touched on the fact again that it's primarily the youth that are now talking about this land issue. Do they even understand land possession, the significance thereof, and land ownership?
If you speak to many youths, I mean, if you get to walk around with a camera across South Africa streets and ask young people about the land, they don't see the significance. And what's quite sad is that it's not only a South African youth problem, it's something that we face as a continent as a whole, whereby even Mam Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, while she was still chairperson of the African Union, she herself stated that it is a big issue because young people were not enticed with land. So they are more akin to the bling life and entertainment life that is offered through urbanization. So it's a big problem because us as young people, we do not largely understand what is it that we're saying when we're saying we want the land back. We feel that there isn't much significance in it because we've seen a lot of people succeed without having any land in itself. And that is largely rooted in our concept in terms of land. I mean, our education system in itself, the curriculum, does not even touch the land aspect. I mean, I remember back in the day, we used to have agriculture as part of one of the modules that we were doing in primary school, which was assisting us in learning about how to plant and whatever they do. But that in itself, the topic wasn't much expounded because you can see that, that the curriculum that was then pushed into schools by the ANC government as they came into power did not have land as a central point. So maybe they themselves, they didn't see the point or what, but then young people now are being churned out of the schooling system, not understanding the land question, but because, as I stated again, of the internet and it being a frenzy, a lot of people are catching a wave, trying to understand, asking questions. Why are you guys asking about land? Why is it that we need this land? We don't see the significance. I mean, it's always propagated the issue of Zimbabwe in terms of they got their land, but look where they are. Many of their citizens are still flooding our country, so on and so forth. So there's still a lot of confusion and a lot of education that needs to be made.
When you look at that, you touched on the issue of education. Would you then say that there was a deliberate miseducation? A deliberate colonization, of a black mind, a young black mind, so that you don't necessarily understand and fully understand the significance of owning your own land, of having your own piece of land that belongs to you?
Partly it is, because if you look at it, then the education itself doesn't only happen in the classroom concept. It happens in general life, in walks of life. So if you look at largely what our young people engage in, so being on the internet, watching TV, I mean, how many programs are focused on in terms of explaining what land is, its extent, its capabilities, what we can achieve if as a nation we were to possess land? It's quite minimal. It's all about music, it's all about entertainment, it's fashion, and not to say these things are bad in themselves. They're actually good, but the focus in terms of the general education that is being offered to us as a youth doesn't even speak about issues of land. It's as if in itself the push is for us to focus somewhere else. I mean, you see it even across to Africa, whereby you see a lot of huge multinational corporations coming into Africa with their GMO seeds, working with government to structurally impose policies that stop young black farmers from coming into the market, instead of saying that focus elsewhere because we need to outsource the production of food, which is something that is so essential to life itself, to someone else. And that in itself is where the problem lies. So we can say the deliberate part, it can be argued, but in itself, the way the current system is constructed is that it doesn't push the knowledge and education about land, its capabilities, of what its position can give to a citizen. It is not pushed towards mainstream media. Yes.
Then comes the issue of the land bank itself. You ask, do we need the land bank?
Yes, it's a very critical question in itself, because there's a lot of questions that are asked in public spaces when we're talking about land, in the sense that what is it that you guys are going to do with the land if the land were to be given back? And what's quite interesting is that the denial of land being given back tends to be tiered, in the sense that the general argument that is heard is that land in itself, before it has taken, it largely has been cultivated and nourished by those whom have held it over the years, and therefore it can't just be given back freely. I mean, there must be some form of compensation that has to go into it. Yes. Secondly, it's a matter of, because of that same compensation topic is what is reinforced by the Constitution itself in terms of the property clause that it has, to say it must be compensated and the agreement must be between those whom are interested, so the buyer and the seller, willing buyer, willing seller. So the question of a land bank in itself is linked to then the solutions that need to come up in terms of how then can land be taken back. And I always like to quote Samora Machel, the former president of Mozambique, when he stated himself to say that the state, in its capacity, sits in a capacity whereby it's supposed to be organized totally to serve the people. So the state in itself is supposed to be the center in terms of getting back the land and then taking it. I mean, I always have this scenario where I say, for instance, if we say tomorrow we nationalize land, nationalization of land means land now belongs to the state. But then that same land can then be taken, given to municipal blocks or municipal demarcations, whereby now it is now given closer ownership to the people themselves. So if, say, a community then under a certain municipality has been given rights to a land, they then as a collective can get to determine what can be done with that land. So if, say, an investor comes, a developer say we want to build a shopping mall within that community, the community itself, through representatives that they would have elected, will then engage that proposal, thoroughly analyze the impact itself that shopping mall will have in the community. And this largely will give them even a huge opportunity to dictate to the developer in terms of what then conditions should be placed for that shopping mall to be built. That the number of businesses, local businesses that should be part of the shopping mall, people should be hired in that shopping mall. The money that comes from the rent paid by that shopping mall, so on and so forth. So if the community itself can get to a stage whereby they collectively determine what happens with the land that they own in itself, then they can benefit, because that is the whole argument, in that the land bank in itself is connected to nationalizing the land, and nationalization is a duty that belongs to the state.
The issue of compensation, I mean, your take on that, because I mean that has raised different views from people who say that this land belonged to us initially. So why should we even be thinking of buying it back? Why don't we just take it back, as it were?
The compensation is out of the question. I mean, if you go to any police station, they will tell you to say it's a preached phenomenon. Of course, communities do not buy stolen goods. So just because company A, multinational A, bought land from somebody who took it because bequeathed it from their father, inherited so on and so forth, that does not still absorb the crime. The crime still exists. The compensation is out of the question. Stolen goods have to be returned. Stolen goods or goods that are taken violently have to be returned because they do not belong to you. So compensation is out of the question, something we shouldn't even discuss.
In terms of facilitating the land return, whose duty is it, as far as you're concerned? I mean, is it a governmental issue? Is it a political issue? And should we even be separating those?
In a sense, so we speak of the state. So political parties exist outside of the state. They only get voted into power, so they only get given rights to administrate the state or state resources as would be. So they determine their own policies on the side, and then they hope that those policies are the ones whom the people say, okay, fine, we give you the rights to administer state resources. So the responsibility lies with the state, because as I stated again, the state is the one that should be organized and committed to totally serving the people. And it's the central body that can bridge the gap, because the state is supposed to be neutral in the sense between labor, business, racially, gender-wise. It is the most significant center that sits in terms of administering land return in itself. So they sit as a body, they have the power to get back the land and then administer giving it back to the citizens.
Do you think the ANC policies are clear as regards the land issue? Do you think, and let's start with the ANC and then look at effectively in terms of the South African government. Let's first look at the ANC. Do you think they have clear policies as far as the land issue is concerned?
No, not necessarily, because in itself, the ANC ascribes and promotes Section 25 of Chapter 2 of our Constitution. They push it as their mantra. It's connected to the Freedom Charter that they decided upon in 1959, in that South Africa belongs to everyone who lives in it. Yeah. A line that doesn't sit well, because I mean, if I go to China tomorrow and say to the Chinese, China should belong to everyone who lives in it, they look at me funny. Same thing, it's the same situation in Europe. If I were to go to the UK and say the same thing, it's a different phenomena. So it doesn't fit well. So obviously, because then their policies are busted from that kind of mentality, they cannot then fully address the situations in which we find ourselves in as a political party, because they ascribe to the notion of compensation, they ascribe to the notion of willing buyer, willing seller. And sadly, the willing buyer, willing seller scenario is constructed in that if there is no willing seller, then the willing buyer can wait forever until they buy. So in itself, it's conflicting.
What should the way forward be in this instance then, in terms of land?
Oh, when it comes to land, it's quite clear and simple in that we as a citizenry, by citizenry, The majority of the nation's black people who themselves are the ones who were dispossessed of their lands through the 365-year-long project that still continues even today, still continues in the sense that we are seeing a lot of developments coming up in the country, steam cities, Mall of Africa's waterfall estates that are happening but do not benefit back. I mean, many of our people cannot even afford to go and stay in these places. So it's a long project that has been going on for years. But in a sense, we need to sit down with ourselves and have this conversation because firstly, we have identified that there is a problem and that is where the solution begins in itself. We just need to find consensus in terms of how we are going to move forward, the solutions that need to be done. But as I said, the proposal that I just made an example of right now, it has a lot of loopholes, but if we were to be in a room discussing a so-called national land in Bizo, whereby we were to discuss this issue, we will plug potholes, connect, agree and disagree wherever we may, but come up with that one solution that will say the state as it sits in its position is at the center. It needs to guide the policy of nationalizing the land and then redistributing it to the people. And then the manner in which it shall be distributed, that shall be decided upon by us as we agree collectively. And to many people it seems impractical because if you put a lot of people in one room, there shall be a lot of disagreements. But as you see that, as the discussions themselves happen, a lot of solutions can come up because there's many circles within the country whereby these discussions are being held in public and in private, and there's a lot of proposals that are being put forward. So the solutions themselves are out there. We just need to gather them around, analyze them, see where we can find the center, that point of synergy, and then push that forward. Because it is a possibility. And firstly, Kwena, we cannot continue the way we've been doing for the past 23 years, or for the past 104 years, counting from the 1912 Land Act that took most of our people and put them in Bantustan, 10% of the country. That in itself, we cannot continue like that. So we do need to sit down as a collectivity individually, organizations, political parties, sit down, have a national endeavor that can go on for a long time. We discuss this issue and see which is the best way that you can go forward. But many things are obviously stated. Land needs to be nationalized. But then the question such as, does the state in its current capacity have the capacity to nationalize land? Because that one is a big one. I mean, such matters as individuals that currently preside over the state do themselves have the moral capacity to nationalize land because they themselves correctly benefit from it. And so. But these are the things that we know. They're in the public sphere. Something that as if we can discuss them, have our own national reviews or whether we're discussing the issue of land, solutions can come out of it.
You know, that's one thing that I missed as we wrap up this conversation, Lunga.
Yes,
in terms of the land, do we even understand when we talk about the land? Do we understand what we are talking about when we talking about our land or this land?
We certainly don't. The concept, if you speak to a lot of people when you speak about land, they only think about the houses that they have and the title deed that they have that they can take to the bank to get a loan, whatever they need from the bank. And land in itself as a concept, it is wide and huge. I mean, on the top land, we talk about the rivers, the mountains, all the resources that are above and beneath the land, the oceans, I mean, even the sky in terms of how high you can build our structures, whatever it may be. So land in itself has many uses. I mean, these uses constitute of property, that is the building of houses in the states. There's farming and grazing, so food, livestock, even the trees that you use for paper. There's mining, the coal, the gold, the gas, all the resources. I mean, there's recreational uses of land, like your Table Mountain, your your Drakensberg Mountain. There's the lineage and cultural significance of land, whereby we as a people traditionally and tribally originate and where our ancestors are buried. I mean, it's a common thing that we as a people would normally bury our people in our backyards. So if land is taken away, we are taken away from that connection to that connection that we have. There's also commercial exploration of land, beach areas, commercial properties.